Welcome to the Wakefield Doctrine, the theory of Clark, Scott, and Rogers. This is a special video presentation of a interview with friend of the Doctrine, Zoe, who is on the other end of the invisible line between here and there. Zoe, the authorette of Rewritten, a blog that you'll find in our blog list to the right, has suggested, consented, and implied that it would be a good thing for her to interview me about the Wakefield Doctrine. So without any more stem winding, let me say hello, Zoe.
Hi, how are you?
I am fine, thank you.
I'm okay. That was your first question.
Oh.
Yeah.
I wish my friends were
very
here.
Well. that was very well done, Clark. Thank you.
Okay.
So, as you know, Clark's our huge preparer, so I'm all ready for this. Not. Anyway, I am wondering, though, because I've listened to, that little Doctrine station you have on YouTube,
Yep.
and I have yet to find an interview with you. Is this your first interview about the Doctrine? For the Doctrine?
My first answer would be no. I thought I did a reverse interview. We did a series of where I was interviewing, but I wanted to believe, it could be a false memory, that I have been interviewed, but I bet you it may not be true, and being a good Clark, that doesn't disturb me any more than it would another Clark, and it certainly should disturb me more than it does. I just stepped on my own line. So the answer is no. No, I haven't.
Okay, well, with me being a Clark as well, I could have just missed it, right? So, who knows, And I'd like to think that, recovered memory is more of a trauma thing, being from my circle of psych people. So, I doubt that it was a traumatic experience for you to be interviewed. So I don't know how you would have lost that memory, but, who knows? So
it's a good point, because this very process is what I consider a demonstration of the existence of a secondary aspect. We all have a predominant aspect, mine being the world of the outsider as a Clark, but we have the potential of a secondary and tertiary, and my secondary is that of a Scott who takes to this like a dog to water. So that's an interesting point, because I do somehow enjoy this. At the same time, I will write with all sincerity that you can spot the Clark at any family gathering, because they're the ones taking pictures as opposed to having the picture taken. We're very, very photophobic.
That is so true. That is so true. So, one of the things about this particular video being special is that you and I are going to actually trade some places on Saturday. Right?
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, are you nervous about turning your baby over to somebody?
No, as long as I have the keys to the car, as we used to say. No, I've done that at least once or twice. And no, it's something that I actually enjoy, because I realize a couple of things when I do that. Not the least of which is that this thing is sort of tottering on its own legs now. Early days, there was a very, very high level of protectiveness, if you will. And now it's gone in the other direction, to where seeing what others do with the format or any take on it is an interesting process.
Yeah, wow. So who have you turned it over to before? I'm kind of surprised.
No, I mean, as a guest post, we had a writing contest that was sort of a guest post. We had a guest post by Denise, Downspring #1, aka. The progenitor Roger did a couple of guest posts back in we're talking now in the first year or two.
Oh wow! And you've been doing this how long?
In 2009, whatever 2009 works out to being. July 26, 2009, not that I'm keeping track.
Wow. You know the exact date.
You think?
Amazing. Amazing.
It's such
Wow.
it's
Okay. Huh. So let me ask you. You know, I know where do you? Well, no, I'm going to ask you that one later. Never mind. But I've been thinking a lot about this doctrine thing because you keep saying like there's this sort of second wave of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, do you have like some idea of like what's the next step for the doctrine at this point?
No, I have the hypo idea of what's going to happen next, which is thanks to
hypothetical, you mean?
No, hypo as in whatever hypo means when applied to a quality, as in hypoallergenic and hypophobic. It's the neutral, the negative form of having a clue, and that's that I lay to yours and Lizzie's and this latest generation's feet, because with your advent here, I've come to realize things about the state of the doctrine that I wasn't aware of, even as it existed. Meaning, people get the doctrine on a level that had not happened before, and it's still I'm still processing that. In fact, I would even go so far as to say, or far, either one, that it's a challenge for me to get a grip on it, because as I start to realize that it isn't simply explain the Wakefield Doctrine, which accounts for the theme for almost all of the 1,000+ posts that we've had so far, and with the awareness that people don't need, or a good percentage of the followers don't need that anymore. It's an interesting.
So do you expect somehow like it's growing beyond your grasp?
Yeah, to a certain extent, not so much. And I went through a very brief period of that, and I take heart from it because it was so brief. The idea that I wasn't keeping up with everyone. And there's definitely a huge ownership element in that, my doctrine and my God.
That's not particularly alarming, knowing that you're a Clark and you would probably underestimate the power of something that you put together.
Without question. I totally agree with that take on it, and it's always I find myself falling back on old, I'm losing the language, but old expressions like I've taught everyone everything they know about the Wakefield Doctrine. I just haven't taught everyone everything I know about the Wakefield Doctrine. So I'm desperately clutching to that being true. in order to support the tinderbox structure of my ego as it relates to the doctrine. That kind of thing. No.
Well, if your ego were just a little bit, more, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe more Scotian, then you would be able to see the depth of this sort of thing that you've created, that it's going to continue to evolve and grow. But I think you maybe have underestimated that, is what you're saying, yeah?
Well, I can see that I did that deliberately, and not necessarily unconsciously, and not necessarily as the wrong thing to do, but and I'll still, at this point, say that I take the position of the leading expert on the Wakefield Doctrine, but not so much the creator of it. I still, a part of me, and I think it's a valuable approach for the way I am, is to not claim I invented this thing. I was lucky, or whatever adjective you want to use, to observe it and then hit on the implications of it, and then everything else was hard work. But the eureka moment, as I refer to it, was not something that I did deliberately. And it's been, you guys in your field must have a cool term for, it's the raison d'etre for my confidence. My confidence from the position of the Wakefield Doctrine is isolated to the Wakefield Doctrine, but it's a order of magnitude more than my confidence in any other area of my life. And the price, in a sense, and I can see maybe the dynamic is the price of it is that I don't take claim to it, but I do claim the right to speak for it. And there's an empowering thing to that. That's, if I knew that part of the human psyche better, it would be kind of interesting, I suspect, or not.
Well, yeah. Well, it's the difference between discovery and creation, isn't it? You discover something and then you develop it. Like somebody discovers electricity and develops it into something functional.
Yep.
So basically, that's what you're saying you've done.
Yep.
Yeah. Aren't you the humble sort? I'm just teasing you.
Well, there's a whole bunch of nicely end-on-end contradictions. Not surprising for a Clark, but I think that this will be, this is another example of everything I've seen about the doctrine, related to the doctrine, has been what I consider helpful to better understand myself, which is the whole point of the thing, I think. With that Clark premise that through understanding I become a higher functioning human. Now, we all may argue, and we should, because the doctrine argues that, okay, that works in one worldview maybe, but it isn't necessarily objectively true, that if I better understand myself, I will develop into a more rounded whatever person, the person I would be.
Right.
Now hold that thought, and let me inform the audience that this is the end of part 3, because we're doing it backwards. However, we like to keep these segments short, so after a brief break, which will last all of a second for you, for here it might be days, we will return with part 2 of the interview with the Wakefield Doctrine.